What is poppin' YouTube? Back again with another video. Today we're doing my waiver wire pickups for week 4. Hopefully you had a good week 3 and ended up winning. If not, we're going to help you win next week by getting these great players onto your roster. The first player that you must be adding everywhere is Devon Achane. We've been talking about Devon Achane. We talked about him all offseason, how he reminded us of Chris Johnson. Elite level speed for my man Devon Achane, who ran a 4.32 40-yard dash. That's absolutely insane. His best comparable was Chris Johnson on Player Profiler. Now, what happened to him in the draft? He went in the 3rd round, but a lot of concern came from Devon Achane because he was 5'9", 188, and he had a BMI of 27.8. So he just isn't a huge running back. And that was the big concern for my man Devon Achane. But ladies and gentlemen, there is no need for us to be worried about Devon Achane. I know a ton of people dropped him after his week 1 scratch. Now the Dolphins absolutely were cooking in this game. Raheem Mostert was going off, Tyreek Hill was going off, but Devon Achane was absolutely going off. 22 total touches, 233 yards, 4 total touchdowns, 10.6 yards per touch. I mean, we're talking about him being absolutely insane. And in most leagues, looking at the statistics, he's only started in 4% of sleeper leagues and 2% of Yahoo leagues, and he's only rostered in about 40% of leagues. So he's available in over 60% of leagues. Devon Achane must add waiver wire target for week 4. If you need some running back help, I think there's a big argument to be made that Devon Achane actually overtake Raheem Mostert as the season goes along, because Devon Achane is just the more explosive athlete. He's super fast. Now, Raheem Mostert also looked good, but I think for me, we've seen Raheem Mostert year after year after year not be able to make it through a full season. Not saying that Devon Achane and his size is going to be able to make it through a full season, but I don't care. If you need running back help right now, Devon Achane is looking like an absolute league winner after that debut. We've been super lucky on the waiver wire. We've had Zach Moss last week. The week before that, we had Kyron Williams. This week, we have Devon Achane. So go see if Devon Achane is out there on your waiver wire. If he's not, don't worry about it. We're going to go through some other must-add waiver wire targets for you. But Devon Achane, shout out to that guy's performance. Shout out to the electric speed, and shout out to the Miami Dolphins for absolutely being electric. My second must-add waiver wire target is going to be Tank Dell for the Houston Texans. Tank Dell, we talked about him a few weeks ago. Tank Dell was going to be a must-stash. But after last week, a lot of people ended up dropping Tank Dell. If we look at what he did this week versus the Jaguars, 5 receptions out of 8 targets. So he had 8 targets for 5 receptions, 145 yards, and 1 total touchdown for 25.5 fantasy points. We heard all throughout training camp of Tank Dell making the waves. We had CJ Stroud saying, draft my boy Tank Dell to the Houston Texans. And he's really kind of emerged as the number 2 target right besides Nico Collins. He's passed up Noah Brown since he's on IR and Robert Woods, and he looks super explosive. And so he's only rostered right now in about 56% of leagues. So Tank Dell is definitely going to be there in some of your leagues. And it was just absolutely amazing, his performance, his electricity. A lot of people are worried, of course, about his size. That's really what made him fall in the draft to where he was drafted. But anyone that was around the Senior Bowl, anyone that followed any sort of Tank Dell hype, knew that this man had potential, knew this was in his range of outcomes. So I do like Tank Dell, and he's going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers next week, who rank 19th against wide receivers. So it's going to be a pretty good matchup. CJ Stroud's absolutely been cooking. Tank Dell is my second must-add waiver wire target heading into week 4. My third must-add waiver wire target, and this is going to be interesting. If you need quarterback play, Justin Fields has been absolutely sucking for you, so you need another quarterback. CJ Stroud. Throw another Ohio State quarterback in there, because CJ Stroud, we liked what we saw coming out of college. We were excited about him. We honestly were a little bit confused on why Bryce Young went ahead of CJ Stroud. We understand it though because of the Ohio State quarterback bias that sometimes tends to be out there. But CJ Stroud comes out in week 3, 280 yards, 14 rushing yards, 2 total touchdowns for 24.6 fantasy points. CJ Stroud looked like he was absolutely cooking, looked like he's finding his groove. And when you got CJ Stroud grooving like he was grooving with, let's be honest, as much as we love Tank Dell, as much as we love Nico Collins, we love Dameon Pierce in the backfield, we have a decent, solid offensive line for these Texans, depending on who you're talking to. It's not like he's playing on the Kansas City Chiefs, not like he's playing on the Chargers, not with these elite level weapons, and he was cooking the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. And so I do think CJ Stroud, as he continues to progress, we're gonna absolutely love CJ Stroud. He's not a Konami code type quarterback where he's gonna be able to be rushing the ball all the time. He's getting you Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields type rushing attempts, but he is a total pocket passer that is absolutely electric with the ball in his hands when he's targeting those wide receivers. So as long as the wide receivers get open, as long as you have pretty good matchups, I think CJ Stroud could provide you weekly fantasy football value. So CJ Stroud, if you need a quarterback, he'd be my third must target waiver wire target for week 4. My fourth must target waiver wire target is going to be Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston comes in 2 receptions out of 3 targets for 10 yards, 3 fantasy points. But the thing that we have to understand about Quentin Johnston is Quentin Johnston was drafted in the first round, essentially the same type of body type as Mike Williams. And with Mike Williams going out, it's looking like he's probably not going to be in for week 4, as much as Mike Williams had an amazing game. So if Quentin Johnston all of a sudden goes from the wide receiver 4, which he's been behind Josh Palmer, to all of a sudden being the wide receiver 3, he's in there on their wide receiver 3 sets, he's getting in the game, getting those targets. I think what we saw from preseason, the electricity that Quentin Johnston can bring yards after the catch is something that's exciting. And Quentin Johnston's only rostered right now in 50% of leagues. So go see if Quentin Johnston out there. I think not so much that he had an amazing week 3 performance that's then going to lead him to having a continued great performance week after week, but I think the opportunity that Quentin Johnston should get, especially if Mike Williams is going to miss 1, 2, 3 weeks. We've been talking about Quentin Johnston. This is the type of chance that he would get with these wide receivers that are getting older, that tend to get injured for the Chargers. I do like Quentin Johnston, especially next week as they go up against the Las Vegas Raiders, who have a pretty suspect secondary, like ranked 21st against wide receivers. So I do like Quentin Johnston as my 4th must-add waiver wire target for week 4. My 5th must-add waiver wire target is going to be Luke Musgrave, rookie tight end for the Green Bay Packers. This last week, a lot of people were asking about tight ends in our lives, and they were kind of commenting on our start sits. It was hard for me to push Sam Laporta this week. I had him as tight end day. It was hard for me to push Luke Musgrave because we love Luke Musgrave. We saw the potential. We just needed to see him really got on target with Jordan Love. But this week, 8 targets, 6 total receptions, 49 yards, 10.9 fantasy points. There was a pass where Luke Musgrave was wide open down the field and Jordan Love absolutely blew the throw and absolutely missed him. The 8.2 yards per catch is probably the most impressive part about Luke Musgrave from week 3. So as we continue to see Luke Musgrave take these steps, I think we're looking at Luke Musgrave as probably a top 10, top 11 tight end on a weekly fantasy football finish with Jordan Love. Like we said, there's a lot of these question marks around the receiving weapons for the Green Bay Packers. Yes, we saw Jaden Reed start to develop. We haven't seen Christian Watson take that emergence, be back fully healthy. So I think Luke Musgrave for the next few weeks could be a great add, especially if you're struggling at the tight end position. Next week, Luke Musgrave goes up against the Detroit Lions. They're 30th against tight ends, so it's a great matchup. And like I said, right now, Luke Musgrave's only rostered in 46% of leagues. So go check out Luke Musgrave. On the same topic, though, if Sam Laporta is somehow on your waiver wire, especially after this week, also go see if Sam Laporta is on the waiver wire. I prefer Sam Laporta. He's typically rostered a lot more than Luke Musgrave is, so he didn't really make the cut for this waiver wire video, but I would go check out if Sam Laporta is there. My 6th must-target waiver wire ad is going to be Jameis Winston. There's just been a ton of quarterback troubles week after week. If you have Justin Fields and maybe CJ Stroud isn't there and you're like, I just need somebody, Jameis Winston, Mr. 30 for 30. If he's out there on the waiver wire, throw him in this offense with Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. I think we see Jameis Winston cook. And that's just in my personal opinion. He's the kind of man that's just going to loft it deep. That's going to benefit Chris Olave. That's going to benefit him in his fantasy points. Next week, they go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're ranked 15th against QBs. He's only rostered in 2% of leagues, so he's an easy target, especially if you need a 1 week, maybe 2 week starter. I think Jameis Winston might be able to fit the bill for you. And it's kind of a revenge game. Tampa Bay versus Jameis Winston. You know he's going to come out slinging the ball. And like you said, he got that LASIK. Maybe he's not as bad as he used to be. He's looked good in the times that he was starting. So we do like Jameis Winston. If you also, like I said, you need a quarterback and your quarterback waiver wire is super thin. We'll give you some more players to potentially target. We're not going to dive as deep into them, but Tyjae Spears absolutely outsnapped Derrick Henry this week. I don't know if that is just because of the gameplay. It's because they were behind, they were throwing the ball. But for Derrick Henry owners was a little bit concerning this week, especially for me who has Derrick Henry in a lot of leagues. But like I said, I don't think that necessarily translates to fantasy points for Tyjae Spears. But Tyjae Spears has been averaging 6.9 yards per carry to Derrick Henry. So go see what it would take if Tyjae Spears is potentially out there on the waiver wire. Jake Ferguson has had a ton of targets in the end zone. I know this week the Dallas Cowboys lost to the Arizona Cardinals. It didn't look great, but he's been absolutely dominating in the inside the red zone targets. Jake Ferguson would also be a tight end to potentially target this week as well. So those are my waiver wire players that you should be targeting this week. Let me know who you like down below. Let me know if you won as well. I would love to hear how your team is doing, how we can make any improvements. So ask me any questions down below. Here to help you win your fantasy football leagues week in and week out. I'll catch you guys on the next one tomorrow. We're going to be talking about trade targets. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already to make sure that you come back again tomorrow, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.